Welcome back. We're here to read more of our favorite book. I'm trying to get the glare out. In the middle of Hickory Lane. So I'm excited to start this today. And let me raise that up just a bit. So yeah, let's get ready. And we are on Chapter 8, Glory's Garden Lesson Number 4. Take a whiff on this, hun. It looks like summer with its green velvety leaves and these magnificent stacked white flowers that look like an ice cream cone. But doesn't it smell like Christmas? Stock scent is reminiscent of clove. It represents beauty, everlasting, and a joyous, happy life. It also symbolizes a lasting, loving bond. If I'd had some stock in my wedding bouquet, maybe my marriage wouldn't have been an utter disaster. Promise me you'll carry it when you get married. Don't argue with me. I'm an old woman. Just promise. That's a good girl. Cora B. I woke up in the pitch black with a familiar sense of impending doom crushing my chest. I gasped for air and pulled myself into a sitting position. My mouth was dry. My head pounded. I glanced at the clock on the bedside table. 2:15 in the morning. I let out a breath and leaned back against the pillows, wishing I could close my eyes and go back to sleep. But it wasn't that easy. It had never been that easy, but especially so since my accident. Sleep had become like silky smoke, a whisper in the night, a soft, fleeting caress. While I love the darkness, I'd do just about anything for a good night's sleep. A doctor once told me that sleep helped heal, and I was desperately in need of healing, physically with my foot and mentally for pretty much everything else. Leaning back against the pillows, I pressed my hands to my heart, willing it to slow its rapid beating. The crushing doom wasn't real, just a memory that was occasionally dredged up to torment me, or at least it felt that way. Glory once advised me to switch up my way of thinking, that rather than viewing my car accident as a painful memory, to choose to think of it as a reminder of my survival, of my strength. I never admitted to her that my survival had never felt like strength, not my own anyway, maybe hers as I credited my survival to her. She'd raced to Gainesville when she'd heard what happened, had taken one look at me, broken and defeated in the hospital bed, and had somehow known exactly what I had done. There had been no judgment, only love, care, and support. By the time my parents had arrived from where they'd been stationed in Singapore, Glory had concocted a plan. I moved to Sweetgrass and lived with her while I fully recuperated from my broken back. Then I'd leave the past behind me and start rebuilding my life, my hopes, my dreams. I'd open my own business, I'd heal. But as much as I tried, I'd yet to fully recover. I was stronger, yes, mentally and physically, but there were still struggles, and my hopes and dreams still lay broken and scattered like shards of rainbow glass. Noise came from the hallway, and I sat up again, listening intently. Footsteps. What in the world was Emmy doing out and about at 2 in the morning? Immediately, my mother's voice sprang into my head. When she called earlier to share that my father had been prescribed an antibiotic for a mild infection, I finally told her about Emmy staying with me before she heard it from Nanette. Mama hadn't been pleased with the news, and I spent 10 minutes attempting to calm her down, trying to convince her that Emmy wasn't going to rob me blind and disappear into the night. Now I was suddenly having doubts about Emmy's intentions. Maybe I was too trusting, too naive, too soft-hearted. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and cursed the splint on my foot. I slipped my other foot into a house slipper, then grabbed my robe from the foot of the bed and pulled it on before picking up a single crutch from where the pair rested on the footboard. I could move faster with only one. The squeak of the front door being pulled open cut through the silence of the night. As I crouched as quickly and quietly as I could down the softly lit hallway, I took mental inventory of my valuables. Heirloom china, silver, my paternal grandmother's diamond necklace, my wedding ring set including a 2-carat engagement ring, my TV, my laptop. It was the thought of the computer loss that made me move even faster. My work life was on that computer, and work was my life. The front door stood open and I stepped onto the porch. The outside lights had been switched off. As I took a moment to let my eyes adjust to the darkness, a sense of calm came over me. The night was a balm to my soul, even now. Much to my relief, Emmy wasn't hopping into a getaway car, idling at the curb. She was standing stock still on the walkway, dimly lit by dull light thrown from the lamppost in front of Glory's house. Her hair was hidden under a dark baseball cap, and she was dressed in black leggings and a black t-shirt. She certainly looked the part of a burglar, except for her feet. I doubted any respectable burglar would wear pink flip-flops while breaking and entering. It was only when I noticed the crimson wisp of fear drifting around her in the soft light that I started to worry. Emmy, are you all right? What are you doing out here? She folded her arms over her chest, hugging them to her body. It's silly. By her reaction, I didn't think whatever had drawn her out here was silly at all. I pushed open the wooden porch door and took one cautious step down the wide plank stairs, then another. What is? There's a bookcase, she said, jerking her head up the street. In the trash. I saw it on my walk earlier. It's a perfectly nice bookcase. Oak. 3 shelves. Sure, it has scars and scuffs and outdated carvings, but I can fill in the carvings, paint it, make it shine. As my brain took a moment to connect the pieces of what she'd said, I walked stiffly toward her, trying to keep from putting too much pressure on my hurt foot. You want the bookcase? It's not like I'd be stealing it, she added quickly. Anything that's left out on the curb for trash is free for the taking. It's just sitting there waiting for someone to see that it's not trash at all. A little love, and it'll be good as new. Because she sounded so defensive, I said, Of course you wouldn't be stealing it. I just don't understand why you didn't take it when you saw it earlier. And have the neighbors see me picking through their trash the day after I arrived? I can only imagine the reaction. I can see your point, I conceded. Something like that was sure to get tongues wagging. But why are you standing here now if you want it? Why not just go get it? She swallowed hard and kept on hugging herself. It's so dark out here. I thought with the street lamps it wouldn't be so bad. But there's no moon and... She shuddered. You're afraid of the dark? A little. A lot, if her body language and those red floaters were any indication. It hurt my heart, her fear, because I found so much peace in the darkness. Let's just go back inside, she said. I really don't need any bookcase. It's not a big deal. There's not anywhere to put it anyway. I won't be moving back to the apartment for a while, and I'm sure you don't want that kind of clutter around your house. Besides, I don't even know if it's still there. I watched her ramble on, her gaze darting down the street to where I assumed she'd seen the bookcase earlier, and made an easy decision. We'll go together to see if it's still there. I took a few tentative steps up the walkway. You're in your robe, Cora B, and you only have one crutch. And you're stalling, Emmy. You'll be filled with regret if you don't even check. Come on. She hesitated for a second and then took a deep breath and stepped forward. All right, fine. Let's just get this over with. That's the kind of enthusiasm I love. She cracked a smile. I kept talking to distract her from her fear. I think darkness can be peaceful. Sometimes you can see more clearly in the dark than you can in the light. The absence of color makes you focus more intently. I thought you loved color. Glory mentioned something about it, that you'd had a natural way with it or something. When you see color the way I do, sometimes it's nice to get a break from it. It crowds my senses. Nighttime darkness evens it out. It's all about the balance for me. How is it that you see color exactly? I was thinking about how to answer when Mabel started barking as we passed Jamie and Alice's place. I tossed a look at their house, hoping Mabel didn't wake anyone up, namely Jamie or Alice. Oh, it is still there, Emmy said, the words coming out bright and sparkly, floating into the night air like golden butterflies. Rushing forward, she inhaled deeply as she ran her hand over the top of the bookcase, as if lovingly reassuring it that it wasn't going to the landfill. She quickly set her arms inside the piece and lifted, letting out a little grunt when the bookcase barely moved. It's heavier than I thought. Solid oak, probably. No veneer for that baby. Mabel kept barking, and I wanted to shush her even though I knew she couldn't hear me. She was going to wake the whole neighborhood. I think so too. Emmy crouched down, her back to the piece. Can you tip it toward me? I'll get it up on my back and carry it home that way. Are you out of your ever-loving mind? I think that bookcase weighs more than you do. You'll be a pancake. That will really get the neighbors talking. I have a hand truck in my garage. We'll go back and get it. Slowly she stood. All right, but we're getting your other crutch while we're there. You really shouldn't be walking around without it. Yes, ma'am. She grinned, and my resolve to only be friendly and not her friend shook like there'd been an earthquake. We turned to head back to the house, and a long shadow emerged from the darkness. Emmy immediately latched onto my arm, gripping it tightly, and fear coursed from her fingers into my skin, burning it. It's okay, I said under my breath, recognizing the man right away. It's just Jamie. Sorry if I startled you, he said, tossing a glance at Emmy's death grip as he stepped onto the sidewalk. Mabel's barking woke me up. I was surprised to see you out here. Is everything okay? He had bad head, his hair sticking out every which way, and wore only a pair of loose knit shorts. I tried to keep my gaze off his chest, but it kept slipping back down until I turned toward the trash cans. So sorry we woke you. We were just rescuing this bookcase for a little upcycling project Emmy's wanting to try. Emmy nodded. Upcycling? At 2:30 in the morning? I shrugged. We were up. It seemed the thing to do, but we needed to go back for a hand truck. It's a little too heavy for Emmy to carry alone, and I'm currently useless. Probably solid oak, he said, giving the piece a good once over. Emmy finally released my arm and glanced at me with a slight smile on her lips, no doubt recognizing that I'd said the exact same thing. There was a twinkle in her eye that suggested she had matchmaker aspirations. I knew this was coming. Nope, no way. I had to put a stop to that right off the bat. Thanks for checking on us, Jamie, but you can go on back to bed. We've got this under control. He walked over to the bookcase, bent and lifted it easily. I'll just take it for you right now. Save you the trip back. He started off down the sidewalk. Show off, Emmy whispered in my ear as we followed him. What exactly is upcycling? Jamie asked over his shoulder. You know how people flip houses? Upcycling is basically furniture flipping, but with a fancier name. Trash to treasure, that kind of thing. What are you planning to do to it, Emmy? Paint it, she said. Maybe fill in some of those carvings to give it a modern look. Probably add some wallpaper on the back panel. Goosebumps rose on my arms at the dreamy sound in her voice. It was as though she could already see the finished product in her mind and was already in love with it. What color are you thinking? I'm not sure. I didn't let myself dream that far, she said. Then she blurted, teal. Something's telling me that it should be teal. My heart fluttered a bit. Teal was the perfect color. Will you keep it or sell it at the sweet place? Jamie asked. He seemed awfully chatty in the middle of the night. Keep it, Emmy said. Do they even sell furniture at the sweet place? I smiled. They sell a little of everything there. He said, I'd love a chance to see if you decide to sell. I've been looking for a bookcase for Alice's room. Something fun and quirky. Unique. But I can't find anything that's just right. Teal was a perfect color for Alice, too. It was almost as though it had been meant for her all along. Then I recalled the love I'd heard in Emmy's voice for the bookcase and doubted she'd part with the piece once it was done. Jamie walked the bookcase up the driveway and waited for me to punch in the code on the outside garage door opener. The door slid open, the light coming on automatically. My car was parked on the left side of the garage, but the right side was completely bare. Remembering Emmy's dreamy tone, I turned to her. What do you think about using this side of the garage to work on the bookcase and any other pieces you find? We can set up a workshop area for you. Her eyes widened, then she blinked away the happiness that had flared up, dousing it quickly. That's real nice of you, Cora B., but I don't want to mess up your whole garage. You're not messing it up, you're creating. I'm all for supporting the arts. Jamie set the bookcase down and put his hands on his hips. Me too. I have some tools you can borrow if you need them. Saws and sanders and just about anything, really. It was awfully nice of him. Emmy must have thought so too, because there was a fine sheen of tears in her eyes. Thanks. Jamie gave us a nod. I need to get back. I closed Mabel off in my bedroom to keep her from barking, and I'm guessing my pillows are shredded by now. You never met a dog so enamored with pillow stuffing. With that, he was off, and we watched him go, his long strides making quick work of the sidewalk that linked our houses. Finally, Emmy turned to me. The moisture was still in her eyes. Really, Cora B., I don't need all this space. The backyard is fine. That way I won't worry about getting paint on the garage floor. Instead, you'll have gnats and grass in your paint, a sunburn, and sore muscles from hauling the bookcase back and forth from the garage to the backyard. In here is perfect. She looked ready to keep on protesting, so I added, I insist. Glancing around, she said, I'd only need a small corner. I couldn't help laughing. We'll figure all that out later on. Right now, we should get to bed for a few hours sleep. We both have a long day ahead. She ran her hand over the top of the bookcase, a small smile playing on her lips. Then her lip trembled and she wiped her eyes with the heels of her hands. Are you okay, Emmy? She nodded, and for a moment I didn't think she was going to say anything, but she finally whispered, I'm not used to people being so nice. Thank you. Suddenly I realized how alike Emmy and that bookcase were. She needed someone to see beyond her rough exterior, to see her value. All she needed was a little love to fully shine. Chapter 9. June 22nd, 1963. What an amazing way to kick off summer. We're finally having a baby. Levi wants a boy, but I'm hoping for a girl. I'm due in February. I hope the baby will love flowers and bees as much as I do. Speaking of bees, I got to talking to Mr. Yardley at the company picnic and told him about some interesting kilns I'd seen in a magazine article. They looked like beehives. He seemed fascinated enough, but Levi told me later Mr. Yardley was just being nice and that the next time we saw him, I shouldn't bother him with my bee nonsense. Still, I think Mr. Yardley truly was interested. Emmy. You're already earning your keep, honey, Glory said over her shoulder as I pushed a hand truck over hard-packed, cracked dirt dotted with limp clumps of weeds and grass. I've gone to battle with that dolly more times than I care to admit and lose nearly every time. I named her Susan after Susan Sugarbaker because you know she would rather die than do manual labor. Seemed appropriate considering the sass that thing gives me. The morning sun sat low in the sky and lazy sunbeams skimmed the tops of booths and tents that were set up on a fenced lot behind the courthouse. Lingering dew dampened the tops of my feet, tickling my toes. As we passed under a wooden sign branded with Sweetgrass Marketplace in swooping font, I asked, Susan who? Glory looked over her shoulder again. Today she wore a lightweight blue dress that matched her eyes, coupled with a chunky necklace and sturdy leather sandals. In her ears were the same antique flower pattern earrings she'd worn every day since I met her. A straw hat with a curled brim and white grosgrain ribbon band shaded her broad face. Sugarbaker, she's a character from the show Designing Women. Have you never seen it? No, ma'am. That's a tragedy. We'll fix that. With a stumble, she stopped in front of a booth and grabbed the counter for balance before smoothly righting herself. She pointed an accusatory finger at the hand truck. Just know if you ever hear me cussing Susan out, that's who I'm talking about. I worried about Glory's balance issues, but because she treated the stumble as though it hadn't happened, I thought it best if I did as well. Eventually, I was going to have to start asking some hard questions, but for right now, I was happy to live with Glory in the land of denial and carry on with the day. 5 wooden crates were stacked on the hand truck and 7 thoughtfully placed bungee cords held them in place. At first, I thought the amount of bungees was overkill, but then I tried to steer the cart and it became clear that the amount of cords had been determined by painful experience. The hand truck seemed to have a mind of its own and was more than willing to throw its weight around. I'd been pushing the blasted thing for only 5 minutes and I nearly tipped it over 4 times, banged up my shins and ankles, and had run over my toes twice. There was a 6th crate still in Glory's SUV that I needed to go back for, and I was grateful it was one that I could carry. It was packed with mason jars full of petite flower arrangements. When I first saw them this morning, I'd wanted to take the whole box back to Cora B's and dot her house with the small pops of beauty. I never considered myself much of a flower person, but there was something about Glory's flowers and the way she arranged them that sent happiness buzzing through me. Gloria held out her arms toward the booth like she was aiming to give it a hug. This one is ours. Ours. It wasn't ours, it was hers, yet her desire to include me warmed my heart and packed my head with thoughts of roots and love and family. It's charming. I think so too. The wooden booth looked like it was part lean-to, part lemonade stand. There was no sidewalls, but it had a plank floor and a cage fan that hung from a timber ceiling. Floating dark wooden shelves lined a ship-back wall that had been whitewashed at some point. There was a cutout in the center of the wall that housed a large purple and gold Glory and B sign. The wooden countertop was worn and scarred, its rounded edge rubbed smooth from time and usage. Several other booths identical to this stall dotted the wide lanes of the marketplace, and mixed in between were a couple dozen matching white canopy tents. It's a prime location, that's for sure. Anyone coming into the marketplace would have to pass by this stall, and I questioned how anyone could resist Glory's treats. I'd already eaten 3 pieces of red velvet fudge, and it wasn't yet 8 a.m. Helps to know the people who started the sweet place way back then. Way back when. When I didn't say anything, she let out a loud laugh. It's me and Dorothy. We're the ones who started it. I smiled at how she laughed at her own joke. Her humor was contagious. I had no idea how long ago. She released a bungee cord and the wooden crate sighed in relief. A good 50 years ago. We were both young moms looking to spread our wings a bit. We started small, roadside stand kind of small, which is an idea I stole straight from B. Slowly our business grew and grew and grew. We'd taken a chance and it paid off. I placed one of the crates on the countertop. The box was full of accessories, tablecloths, runners, doilies, stands, trays, and several empty mason jars. A success story then. With a touch of pride in her eyes, she glanced around the lot. For the most part, there's been some ups and downs, mostly ups. We've been lucky that the town has supported us for so long, letting us lease this land on the cheap. But that's going to be changing soon. I set another box into the countertop. Change how? The town's decided that Sweetgrass needs a municipal building and community center on this lot more than it needs us. The sweet place is fixing to move across town next month. Buck's Drive-In has offered us a short-term contract to set up there. We'll have to pack up and clear out every day, so it's not ideal, but I'm mightily grateful we won't have to shut down until we find land of our own. I lifted another crate. This one was filled with clear plastic bags stuffed with treats. Each bag was labeled with the beautiful Glory and B sticker and tied at the top with gold ribbon. There were cookies, caramels, fudge, divinity, peanut brittle, truffles. I wanted to sample them all. It doesn't seem right to kick you out after 50 years. The community center will have public meeting rooms, fun class offerings, a gym, an indoor pool, a big outdoor pool with slides, a toddler pool, and a splash pad. Even I voted for its approval. At her honesty, I smiled. Sometimes change is a good thing, Emmy. She winked at me before sorting through a box. Change. I'd had so many changes during my lifetime that I was more than ready for stability, for predictability, for routine. I'd been hoping the last change in my life for a long while, would be moving into Glory's garage apartment. But then I moved in with Cora B. And now in a month, my workplace would be changing locations. It suddenly felt overwhelming, like I was caught in a riptide, being carried along and trying not to drown. How was I going to be able to set roots if I was constantly moving? It was as if the universe was working against me, telling me that until I told the absolute truth, I'd keep getting dragged along. It was an unsettling thought. "Good morning," a woman said as she easily pulled a collapsible wagon behind her. With its all-terrain wheels, the wagon rolled smoothly, barely even jostling the small pallets of bagged bread nestled inside its high walls. I bet she hadn't once run over her toes. "Mariella, meet my granddaughter Emmy. This is Mariella Saunders, one of the best bakers in the South. She specializes in bread, all kinds of glorious bread." Mariella's dark cheeks lifted high at the compliment. "It's a labor of love. Nice to meet you, Emmy. Welcome to Sweetgrass." Mariella seemed to be assessing me the same way I was her. Amiable was the word that came immediately to mind. With her big eyes, wide smile, and full cheeks, she had a friendly face, inviting. She was the type of person who probably had people lining up at her stall not only for bread but to chat about the weather or ask where they could find okra in the marketplace. She'd be an easy mark. Hers was the kind of personality con artists love to take advantage of. Suddenly, I wanted to warn her to be careful of being too open, too friendly. Yet there wasn't a trace of suspicion in her gaze as she looked at me. Only curiosity. Somehow I felt seen for the first time in a long while, and that made me want to thank her like she'd given me a gift. The push and pull between my old life and my new one was proving to be confusing and slightly painful. "Thank you," I finally said, meaning it. "It's good to be here." Her eyes squinted when she smiled. "I'm sure I'll be seeing you around." Glory said, "I'll be by later for a loaf of rosemary bread, so be sure to set one aside." "Sure thing," she said with a wave and strode off, her wagon following obediently at the slightest tug from her hand. I watched her go, eyeing the roll of those wheels. I think I have wagon envy. Gloria laughed. "Susan will grow on you." I had my doubts. For the next 10 minutes, Gloria and I worked quickly and efficiently to set up her display as if we'd done it together 1,000 times before. I marveled at the result. The shelves were filled with baskets of goodies, and mason jars had been loaded with beautiful honey lollipops, their amber color almost translucent. There were tiered trays full of box cake slices and stunning cupcakes topped with playful fondant bees, clear packaging showing all the delight inside. An old tobacco basket on the countertop was brimming with sugar cookie sandwiches filled with various types of frosting. A shallow wicker basket held the only merchandise for sale at the stall that Gloria hadn't made or grown. It was full of crocheted pieces done in bright, playful colors: coasters, doilies, hot pads, washcloths, a floppy bunny. I picked up the rabbit, studied it closely. It was primarily crafted from pale purple yarn, but there was some silver mixed in as well. It had long lop ears, wide-set friendly eyes, and a delicate white yarn nose. Attached with twine was a brown craft paper tag that read "Cora B's Crochet." The bunny was priced at $20, and if I didn't need to buy paint and supplies for the bookcase, I'd have bought it then and there. "Cora B has a way with yarn, doesn't she?" Gloria asked as she stepped up next to me. I set the bunny back into the basket. "Most definitely. The bunny is my favorite of what's here." I'd been hesitant to leave Cora B this morning, but she insisted she'd be fine for a few hours on her own. She had moved her morning meetings to the afternoon and planned to work on existing projects while I was gone. Gloria said, "I don't know how she does it. She tried to teach me how to crochet a few times, and all I ended up with was a ball of knotted yarn. Won't be long before she tries to teach you." I smiled. Another of her bad influences? You have to keep a close eye on her. For a moment, our gazes held. It almost felt like a hug, and for some reason it made me feel like crying. I wasn't sure whether from happiness or sadness. I jerked a thumb over my shoulder. "I should go get the flowers before they start wilting. Should I close the windows and lock the SUV when I'm done?" She waved a hand as she set up her cash drawer and pulled out a computer tablet that had a credit card reader attached. "No need, honey." Gloria had left the windows down in the SUV and the doors unlocked, and it had taken all my willpower to walk away from it, so unprotected. Gloria was tempting fate, leaving the vehicle wide open. Just on my quick survey of the interior on the drive over, I'd seen a couple of dollars in the console, loose change scattered about, a crystal sun catcher dangling from the rearview mirror. There was a toolbox she kept in the back seat for emergency repairs at her booth, a couple of lawn chairs, sunglasses, a GPS device, and worst of all, her garage door opener. With that, thieves could access whatever Gloria kept in her garage, and I was suddenly thankful that her garage wasn't connected to her house. Not that it mattered all that much, because she kept those doors unlocked too. I wanted to shake sense into her, and to all these unsuspecting people, but I had the feeling they'd only smile and tell me that Sweetgrass was a safe place. Maybe it was safer than most, but no place was immune from the dangers in the world. The tragic discovery in the garden over the weekend proved that. As I headed for the small parking lot adjacent to the courthouse, I couldn't help noticing the courthouse's clock tower. It loomed above me, radiating disapproval as though it knew I didn't belong here, in this town. It might be right, but I was staying as long as I could, so I ignored it, even as I wondered who in their right mind thought that dark brick was a good idea. I passed by other vendors heading for their stalls and offered small smiles, hoping they came off as friendly and not as quite painful as they felt. I opened the back of the SUV and was reaching for the crate of flowers when I felt the air shift around me. I whirled around, my hands fisted, and came face to face with Chase Kistler. He held his hands up. "Hey now, friend not foe." I wasn't sure about that, but released my fist. "Sorry, old habits, but you should really clear your throat or something when you approach someone from behind." Of all people, a former police officer should know that, and I sensed he did know. that he'd been testing me somehow. I didn't know whether I'd passed or failed. He gave an easy smile and glanced at my hands, which had fisted again. I reached for the crate of flowers so my hands would have something to do. My apologies, he said. I thought you heard. Dottie always teases me about how I clomp around the house. I didn't want to admit I had been lost in thought, so I simply nodded my acceptance of his apology. I didn't take you as a clomper. Dorothy, I noticed, stood not too far away, chatting with a woman I didn't recognize. Neither were paying us any mind. Compared to her bird-like steps, he said, I'm practically a one-man marching band. Also, when she fell and hit her head a few years ago, it not only affected her mind, but her hearing as well, amplified it. Here, let me take that. He reached for the crate. It's okay, I've got it. He grabbed hold anyway. I insist. It's the gentlemanly thing to do. Are you a gentleman, I asked. I'm working on it. I released the crate, not because of his smile, but because I didn't like standing so close to him. It was the easiest way to separate myself. I closed the hatch and couldn't keep myself from locking the doors. Still, I eyed the open windows. They weren't all the way down, but someone with a skinny arm could certainly reach inside. Something wrong? Nope. It's killing you keeping those windows open, isn't it? More old habits? He asked. I didn't like how easily he saw right through me. I tried for a long, light shrug. Glory said to leave them open. Where'd you learn these habits of yours anyway? You don't seem the type to throw a punch. I glanced at Dorothy and silently begged her to wrap up her conversation. Nowhere in particular. I think I passed through there a time or two. I tucked Glory's keys in the pocket of my shorts. I knew you looked familiar. He smiled. It wasn't one of his usual easy, lazy smiles, but one that reached his eyes and lit them up. One that made the dimple show. I took a step away and again glanced over at Dorothy, who was still chatting up a storm, her arms swinging this way and that as she related a story that didn't seem to be ending anytime soon. I should get these flowers to Glory. I held out my hands for the crate, more than ready to flee. Looks like shoppers are arriving. Just lead the way, he said. Don't you need to wait for Dorothy? Something flitted in his eyes before he turned and said, Dottie, I'll be right back. She waved a hand at him, shooing him along. He laughed. She hates when I hover. How does she feel about you living with her then? I asked before I could stop myself. For a second, I didn't think he was going to answer, but finally he said, mixed emotions, but I'm a slight better than having to move to assisted living, so she tolerates me. I was starting to feel emotionally invested in this conversation, wanting to ask him a dozen more questions, each more personal than the last. So I picked up my pace and pressed my lips together. Are you ready for today? He asked. There's bound to be a crowd just wanting to catch a glimpse of you. It's not every day Glory's granddaughter makes an appearance. As ready as I'll ever be. To avoid someone coming the other way, he moved in close to me and didn't step back afterward. Uncomfortable with the closeness, I veered to the left. Thankfully, he took the hint and didn't glue himself to my side again. As we approached Glory's stall, she grinned as she looked between Chase and me. Delegation, I love it. You've got some good leadership skills there, Emmy, honey. I said, it wasn't so much delegation as appropriation. Chase's eyes widened in surprise and then narrowed as he reassessed me. Hold up now, I was being a gentleman. Glory laughed and took the flowers from Chase. Whatever it was, I'm glad you two are getting on so well since you'll be spending a fair amount of time together. I froze. What's this now? You didn't tell her? Glory asked Chase. Didn't have the chance. I was too busy appropriating. I clenched my fist and heard him chuckle. Tell me what? I asked. Chase is going to help you with the garage apartment redo. Wanted to tell you himself, but I guess the cat's out of the bag now. Isn't that nice of him to help? My gaze slid to his. He watched me carefully. So nice, I said through clenched teeth. This had to be the little plan she and Dorothy had cooked up in the kitchen last night. You two should be able to get started in a week or so. I've been online shopping and I'm just waiting until everything comes in before you get started. There's nothing so frustrating as getting started on a project only to have to stop because you don't have what you need. It was mean of me, but I hope the items were back ordered for a long while. Chase scratched the stubble on his chin and smiled. I should get back to Dorothy. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better, Emmy. Aw, Glory crooned. I said tightly, can't wait. He laughed as he walked away, and as I busied myself behind the counter, I wondered why I couldn't stop thinking about his dental. By noon, I decided that if an arts and crafts show and a farmer's market had a baby, it'd be the sweet place. You could find just about anything here, from handcrafted furniture to garlic bulbs pulled fresh from the dirt. I longed to wander the pathways, visit every booth, but stayed put alongside Glory. She had an easy way about her I tried to emulate, because I certainly didn't have the people skills to be as charming as she was. Throughout the morning, I'd pasted on a fake smile while suffering through endless introductions to other Sweetgrass residents. I'd never remember all the names, but I'd be able to recall my first impressions. Amusing, empathetic, arrogant, intelligent, wise, funny, cautious, faithful, genuine, and dramatic. Interestingly, every single one of the booth's visitors had inquired after Glory's health in one way or another, whether it was a direct question or a more indirect. You're looking well, Glory. It quickly became clear she had a set of prepared responses that ranged from doing just fine, right as rain, and better than ever, to every day is a good day to be alive. After which she'd redirect the conversation, asking about their health or spouse or child or work. It felt like everyone knew a secret that I wasn't privy to. I was going to have to ask about Glory's health sooner rather than later, but asking Glory to her face was something I couldn't bring myself to do, especially since she seemed happy living in her land of denial. I'd ask Cora B. this afternoon. With thoughts of Cora B, I glanced toward the crochet basket and felt a deep pang of sadness to see that the darling little bunny had been sold. All right, guys, now we are on chapter 10. Wow. Okay, so we're almost halfway. So, you guys, what do you think? I mean, you have to love this book. Like, the magic she puts into her writing, and not just simplicity, but you can like see it. You can visualize it, and it feels more real than magic. Like these things could happen by chance, you know, and it makes your life, it brings just a little bit more magic into your everyday thinking. Like, I don't know. It just, since I started reading her books, my anxiety and like seasonal depression has felt like it lifted a lot, just because you associate with things, if you associate with things that are positive, your mind will become more positive. If you watch negativity and read negativity, which is a lot of on TV, like these murder shows and stuff, and I'm not going to be watching that. That's, I don't know how people do, but surround yourself with positivity, and it will change your life. It really will. And her books have really led me to another place in my life, and I never thought reading could do that. But In the Middle of Hickory Lane is, I'm actually thinking it could be my favorite one now. I don't know. But I'm going to read her other books on here too. I think we should read all the ones that she's done because they're that good. And I'll read them again. Because just like watching a movie, every time you watch it, you pick up on more things that you didn't know were there. But you guys, I mean, it's so awesome. And I love this. This is the one I got. I know it's not a haul video, but this is the one I got from, and it has pockets. I thought it was perfect for this story time. It's perfect. And the weather, it's going to be in the 60s today. I'm so excited. So you guys, I will see you tomorrow for the next reading. And thank you for being here. Bye.